How many friends have you made today? Chapter 1. Really? Anon sits on his couch with a book that he borrowed from the local library. The sound of glass breaking can be heard deep within the house. With a long, tired sigh, Anon put his book down and got ready for the inevitable. You see, when Anon first arrived in Equestria, everything was rather hectic. The ponies were in an epic battle with a god of chaos at the time, and they thought that he was part of Discord's plan. Anon didn't really care when they shot him with a rainbow, and he didn't care when they apologized afterward when it didn't disintegrate him. No, Anon just didn't really seem to care about anything that was happening. After some time passed, Anon found a job working with a local candy maker by the name of Bonbon. It said that the reason her business grew as large as it did is because Anon was working there. Ponies were cautious about what he made, but there was just something special about the candy Bonbon put in her storefronts every day. No pony is really sure what goes on in Anon's mind. For the past year, he's stuck to a schedule. He wakes up early and heads to work. Afterwards, he sometimes checks a book out at the library and then he just reads alone in his home. Many ponies have never seen Anon out with another pony since his arrival. He just likes to keep to himself, and most just think it's a human thing. Now, why has Anon kept his distance from these ponies, you may ask? Well, to be honest, he was interested in making friends for the first month of his arrival. However, a few things happened within the first few months that led to his isolation. It wasn't considered a big loss to him, in all honesty. He just found that every so often these ponies would somehow get themselves into trouble anyways. Whether it was some wayward Coulthard filly gallivanting into the Everfree, or even one of the adults getting into some kind of epic battle, Anon just wanted his peace and quiet, to be left alone. He found that being friends with these creatures would make his life more than a bit complicated, and he doesn't like complicated. So, Anon just sits alone in his home most of the time with a good book in hand. Some ponies would say that his life is unfulfilled, but Anon is content. That brings us back to the present, though. Some pony is breaking into his house, and he knows all too well who it is. You see, even Anon couldn't have a normal life in Equestria. There's this one pony that always wants him to get out and make some friends. He puts up with her, but he would be lying if he didn't admit that it's starting to get on his last nerve. With a long sigh, Anon gets up to make some tea for his guest and himself. Anon can hear the sound of a pony rolling around the stairs. She must have had a bad landing this time. Anon sets a pot onto the stove to boil and brings out his best tea set. While he avoids ponies, for the most part, if they choose to come and visit, then he would be a good host. Not like he ever expects a pony to visit him anyways, with the exception of Pinky, perhaps. Again, Anon just doesn't want friends, but he wasn't going to be mean to any of the ponies because of that. The sound of hooves can be heard coming down the stairs. Anon is putting on the finishing touches onto the 2 cups of tea. He takes a seat and waits for her arrival. The door opens widely as the Princess of Equestria herself strolls right in and takes her usual seat. Anon glances over to a clock that is hanging on the wall. She is on time, as usual, and Celestia smiles upon Anon with that motherly look of hers.
Hello, Anon,
she says with that smooth, angelic voice of hers. Celestia, he answers back. She looks down to her cup of tea and picks it up with her magic. With a single sip, she gives it a nod and sets it back onto its saucer.
Oh, you know me too well, Anon,
she compliments. He does know her too well. Within a few months of his arrival, Celestia showed up to meet with him. After that day, she kept coming around for some reason, always asking him the same question over and over again. It annoys him to no end, but it's something that he accepts as part of his routine now. Celestia comes crashing through one of his windows and then they talk over some tea. She likes a little drizzle of honey over adding sugar, something about not mixing well with the taste. Well, I've gotten more practice recently, Anon answers in a neutral tone. That is true. Celestia's visits have become more frequent over the past few weeks, and it feels as if she visits almost every day.
It definitely shows.
She takes another sip of her tea just before getting to the next part of the routine.
So, Anon?
She pauses so she can set her cup down.
How many friends have you made today?
She asks innocently. Anon let out a long and tired sigh. There's the question. She asks it every time that she comes here. She knows as well as him that he has not made any friends since his arrival. This has been his routine. Celestia comes crashing through a window, and she always asks that same question. None, he answers with his usual tone. Her face never falls at his answer. She just gives a curt nod and takes another sip of her tea.
Very well. May I ask how your day has been?
She asks. That was another thing Celestia liked to do. Always asking him about how his day was, or even about his past. He usually keeps to himself, but sometimes he just shares stuff just to shut her up. I can't complain. I helped Bonbon make another candy for my world.
Really?
She asked, genuinely interested. He nods while rising from his seat. He walks over to a cupboard and pulls out a bowl. He takes a seat once again, while setting the bowl onto the counter for her. Celestia looks into the bowl with a raised brow. What she sees in the bowl, well, she can't really explain. They look like little colorful worms of some kind. She had never seen a creature such as these before. Anon picks one out, and without hesitation, pops it into his mouth. The princess's will is strong, unswayed by many things in this world. Great evils that whisper sweet nothings fall on deaf ears to her. Threatening royals that try to push her around just to get a taste of why she's the princess of this nation. But there's always one thing Celestia couldn't handle very well. Icky things. It's one of her well-guarded secrets. She can't help herself as she turns a bit green at the idea of eating a worm. A colorful one, no less. Try one. Anon offers her one of the worms. Anon never really shows much emotion, but he has to admit that he knows Celestia's secret of avoiding the gross stuff, so he tries to exploit it as much as he can. He would never admit it, but it makes Celestia seem more human in many ways. She's usually viewed as a goddess of this land, so to see a side of her that no pony else knows about kinda makes him feel happy. The small grin on his face makes that apparent.
I am not eating that creature!
She shouts, appalled. Anon chuckles a bit as he eats another, savoring the cringe that Celestia gives to him. This ain't a creature, Celestia. It's candy. He pops another one into his mouth. Celestia feels her brow rise as she looks into the bowl again. Now that he mentions it, they aren't moving, as if they're alive. She picks one up with her magic and brings it close to her muzzle. Taking in its scents, she can smell the various flavors at each color. Red seemed to be strawberry, while the blue smells of blueberry. It definitely smells delicious, and hesitantly, she pops one into her mouth and chews it a bit. She is pleasantly surprised. The texture is odd, given its shape, and yet it still holds firm unless you really gnawed on it. It's sweet, and the different flavors mixing together really throws her for a loop. After savoring it for a bit, she swallows it. She knows Anon has talent, and ever since his arrival, he's been recreating treats from his world quite often. But this is different. His usual work has just been variations of former candies that can be found in Equestria, but this is new. This is something that she had never experienced in her long life. This is going to become the next big thing.
Anon, this is amazing!
She praises him, breaking from her stoic attitude. Anon shrugs. Well, they aren't that hard to make, but thanks for the compliment. That's always something odd about Anon. Usually ponies take joy in basking in another pony's praise, but Anon was always different. He seems to demean himself just before he accepts the praise, or even passes the praise off by stating that what he did wasn't really special. Almost as if he's trying to lessen the value of it. It's something that Celestia knows well. She does it quite often. She looks down to the bowl again and takes another one out, popping it into her mouth.
So, what do you call them?
She asks between chews. Gummy worms, he answers.
Why worms?
She asks. He shrugs again. Human kids are kinda weird. Usually the cool kids are the ones that do the grossest stuff, and the grossest thing that you can do is eat a live worm. He can see Celestia's turn green again as he chuckles to himself. It's actually a lot more common than you think. Anyways, I guess someone just took that idea and made it into candy. The foals will probably get a kick out of the idea of eating a worm, even if it is candy. Celestia couldn't deny that fact. The younger generation does seem to enjoy some rather rambunctious activities. To simply play off that idea and to even deter them with a more practical means is genius. After all, foals all around the world would come to candy stores to eat a candy worm.
That is rather ingenious, Anon.
Celestia admits.
How much have you made?
A few pounds today. I had to teach Bonbon how they're made, minus the secret ingredient. He grinned at the end. Celestia rolled her eyes. She knows that her little ponies would never stab Anon in the back and deny him his pay for something that he created, but He always kept a single thing secret from all of his recipes, something that makes them come together. She couldn't blame him, though. She still remembers the stories that he'd told her about his world, a place where, more times than not, someone's kindness is taken and used up. She shakes those thoughts away. Anon is here now, and that's alright by her.
So, you never did tell me the secret ingredient.
Celestia asked with a grin, popping another worm into her mouth. Do you really want to know, Celestia? Anon asks. She nods some, and leans forward a bit, offering him an ear. He gets the gesture and leans in as well, placing his mouth next to her ear, whispering just enough for only her to hear. Nothing. Celestia feels her ear flick a bit as they retake their positions. Her face shows confusion as they look at his ever-present grin, but soon her confusion turns to a knowing smile.
Oh, I see.
She gives a nod.
You never even held back an ingredient, did you?
Anon couldn't help but laugh at that. Yup, I just told Bonbon that it was missing one thing, and that was my secret ingredient. I never did add anything. She just had everything all along. Celestia shakes her head in some amusement.
Very clever,
she admits. He shrugs. Not really, but I do have my moments. Celestia finds her gaze wandering over to the clock on the wall. They've been talking for a few hours now. She lets out a little disappointed sigh as she looks back to Anon.
I need to head back to Canterlot.
Anon looks over to the clock and gives a nod. It looks about that time. Anon and Celestia both rise from their seats and make their way to the front room. Anon opens the front door for Celestia as she steps out into the yard. Anon closes the door behind himself as she looks towards Canterlot. She comes trotting up to him and gives him a bow.
As always, thank you for allowing me into your home,
she says with grace. Well, unless I invest in that giant net for my house, I don't think I could stop you from coming by, he says jokingly. Celestia giggles a bit at that joke.
Remember what I said, Anon. Try to make some friends. I'll be back tomorrow to check on your progress.
He rolls his eyes. Yeah, get going before Luna freaks out. With one last smile, Celestia spreads her wings and flies off towards Canterlot. Anon has been here for over a year now, and never made a single friend. Celestia has been the only pony that comes around regularly. They talk for hours, and they share memories with each other. They never need to worry about the other judging them. Ideas are exchanged, jokes are made, and they have fun with each other. Anon feels his smile fade some as he thinks things over for a bit. A knowing smile slowly returning as a chuckle builds inside of him. He just shakes his head as he looks into the sky and watches Celestia fly. Today, I didn't make a friend, he says. Then again, I had one, all along. While he couldn't see it himself, Celestia's smile grew a little bit more as she kept her gaze on Canterlot Castle.
I'll see you tomorrow, Anonymous.
Now that was just drop dead sweet. I don't know why, but Anon and Celestia together, especially when Celestia is in like her motherly mode, it's just so heartwarming. Anyway, let's get on to our very heartwarming donators. Top donators, Dash of Evergreen, Peter Coulthard, J Tinman, Darkside, and Ponyman. CourierCruz CI, Delta Omega, Strix, RuneScythe9852, dospo, Ryanny Dragonwolf, Secret Moon, Tallrascha, The Toilet Snake, Cerberus, Starlight Glimmer, Squiddy Boy, David E. Sanchez, Soul Dragon, Gaggy, Trey, Shadow Drake, Joe Pure C, Alex F, Rainbow Dash, Teal'ca Anderson, TV Killer, and John Becker. Thank you all very much for watching this video. Live life to the fullest, and give Celestia a hug today.